We begin at the threshold. The outer world fades, and before us rises the enigmatic symbol carved in stone, painted on temple walls, woven into myths and encoded in forgotten scripts. The labyrinth. What secrets does it hold, and why has this shape endured across ages and civilizations, always beckoning, always concealing, long before our world was etched with borders and histories? When memory still breathed through oral myth and temples spoke in geometry, there was a path, not straight, but spiral. It was neither a maze of confusion nor a puzzle of walls. The true labyrinth was not meant to trap, but to transform. It appears in cultures that never met: Minoan Crete, Celtic Britain, Vedic India, pre-Columbian America, all tracing the same curving form. Why, imagine you stand at the entrance of a labyrinth carved into the stone floor of a cathedral, the air thick with incense, your steps echoing into the great silence. Or perhaps beneath a blazing desert sun, among the desert ruins of Chavan de Water in Peru, where a subterranean maze once whispered its secrets to initiates. In both, the labyrinth is more than architecture, it is ritual made stone. In the language of the ancients, form was never arbitrary. The spiral, the turn, the return, these were the scripts of transformation. A labyrinth was a metaphysical map, a mirror of the cosmos, a cipher of the soul's journey from the periphery to the center, and back again. To the Hermeticist, as above, so below. And so the labyrinth represented the universal process of descent into matter and ascent back to spirit. To walk the labyrinth was to retrace the path of incarnation, to rediscover the thread that leads from chaos to clarity, from fragmentation to unity. We find the motif of the labyrinth encoded in the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, but modern tellings have hollowed it. Beneath the surface of that myth lies a mystery, right? Theseus was not merely slaying a beast, he was confronting his shadow. The Minotaur, half man, half beast, is the archetype of the untamed unconscious, the raw forces within us, Ariadne's thread, the golden path of gnosis, the inner knowing that guides the seeker through darkness. But to enter the labyrinth, something must be left behind. The labyrinth has no door, only a threshold, and to cross it is to begin the ancient work, the opus magnum of alchemical transformation. In many traditions, the initiate's journey begins with disorientation, the loss of the world's former clarity. The labyrinth initiates this state by turning us inward, step by step, curve by curve, until the outer world dissolves into the sacred spiral. The earliest physical labyrinths, like those in ancient Egypt, were never open to the public. They were hidden, underground, shielded from profane eyes. Herodotus speaks of one such structure at Hawara, grander even than the pyramids, with 3,000 chambers and a temple within. It is lost now, buried, denied, or forgotten, like much of the ancient world's secret knowledge. What was the purpose of such a labyrinth? It was not defense. It was not prison. It was initiation. Each chamber test, each turn a veil. The initiate was not meant to simply escape, but to awaken. To walk a true labyrinth is not to become lost, but to be led inward. Its symmetry hides the truth. There is only one path, no choices, no forks, only the journey and what you carry into it. And so we arrive at the first revelation. The labyrinth is not a puzzle to be solved, it is a mirror to be faced. The journey has begun. The deeper we go, the more the outer world fades. The turns are slow, deliberate. Sound becomes distant. Light no longer serves as a compass. Something else begins to awaken. A feeling older than words, recognition. For those who have walked the inner spiral, this moment is unmistakable. The veil of the surface self begins to thin, and underneath it, an echo. You have walked this before, in the ancient mystery schools of Eleusis, in the rites of Isis, and the hidden sanctuaries of Mithras. The initiate descended through a winding path, physical or symbolic, into the depths of the earth, of mind, of spirit. It was a sacred forgetting, a necessary darkness before the light. but how to return, how not to be consumed. This is where Ariadne's thread returns, not merely a tool of escape, but a symbol of anamnesis, the Platonic term for the soul's remembrance of eternal truths. The thread is the path of return. Yes, but more profoundly, it is that which connects the seeker to the divine, the luminous trace that has never been lost, only obscured. In alchemical texts, this thread appears as the filamarium, the golden filament that runs through all stages of the great work, linking nigredo to albedo, dissolution to revelation. In Kabbalah, it is the hidden path on the tree of life, narrow bridge that leads from Molketh back to Keter, the kingdom to the crown. And in sacred geometry, the labyrinth itself becomes a glyph of memory, each spiral a coil of encoded wisdom. At Chartres Cathedral in France, the famed labyrinth is not merely decorative. It aligns with cosmic principles, echoing lunar cycles and solar mysteries. To walk it is to resonate with celestial rhythms. Every step stirs the ancient chords of the soul. These structures were not designed, they were received. The builders of Chartres were not architects in the modern sense, but inheritors of a transmission, initiates of a sacred art passed through guilds, guarded by oath, woven with symbolism invisible to the profane. The very stone holds vibrations, meant to awaken memory, not of the intellect, but of the soul. There are stories, whispered, unverifiable, of those who, upon reaching the center of such labyrinths, fall to their knees in tears, overcome by a vision or a soundless recognition, a face, a place, a flame that never went out. Such moments cannot be explained, only remembered. The thread is not literal, it is woven into the seeker. This is why, across cultures, the labyrinth is linked with rebirth. The Hopi people speak of the mother and the child labyrinth, a symbol of emergence from the underworld of origin. In Vedic thought, the spiral represents samsara, the cycles of death and rebirth, until one finds the center and escapes. And what lies at the center, not a treasure, not an answer, but a memory so old it precedes language, that we are more than flesh, more than thought, that our origins are not of this world, but of stars of light, of fire before time. As you walk, the spiral becomes tighter, the path draws you inward, the self you brought begins to dissolve, and still you follow the thread, not with your eyes, but with your being, and then you begin to realize the labyrinth does not change, you do. You thought the path would become clearer as you neared the center, but it doesn't. The turns become tighter, the air heavier. There is no voice to guide you now, only the sound of your own breath, and something else, a stirring. It is not outside you, it is within. Something has awakened, something that has been waiting. Every labyrinth, no matter the culture or the era, contains a confrontation. The Hopi emergence myths, the Greek tale of Theseus, the Tantric mandalas of Himalayan initiates, all encode this universal truth. Before the light, one must pass through the beast. And so we meet the Minotaur. In modern retellings, he is a monster slain by a hero. But this is a distortion of a deeper myth. In truth, the Minotaur is not meant to be destroyed. He is meant to be understood. Let us look closer. He is born of Pasiphae and the bull of Poseidon, half human, half animal. Born from unnatural union, hidden away, feared. But he is not the villain. He is the product of denial, of suppressed desire, of what cannot be named. He is our shadow, the part of the psyche repressed, cast into darkness, buried behind the walls of the inner labyrinth. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of us we disown, the instincts we suppress, the traumas we exile. It is the wrath we deny, the lust we refuse, the grief we hide. And yet, it is not evil, it is energy without awareness, power and integrated. The ancient initiates knew this. To walk the labyrinth was not to conquer, but to encounter. Rites of Dionysus, god of ecstasy and madness, involved descent into chaos, loss of self, ritual intoxication. Why? Because only in the dissolution of the persona can the deeper self emerge. The Minotaur is not the enemy. He is the guardian, in sacred rituals of the Mithraic mysteries. The initiate symbolically slays a bull, not to destroy the animal within, but to transmute it. Blood is spilled not to end life, but to feed the soil of rebirth. In this symbolic death, the initiate meets the unconscious, the raw force of life before control, before morality, before division. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the soul passes through gates and guardians in the underworld, each one a facet of the self, demanding recognition. The heart is weighed, not against sin, but against truth. And so you, too, reach the center, not a room, not a shrine, but a presence. There is no light here. Only a silence so deep it begins to speak. And what it says is not in words, is an unveiling. You see yourself, not as you wish to be, not as you pretend to be, but as you are, raw, flawed, whole. And the Minotaur, this ancient beast, this feared other, turns to you. He does not attack. He waits. You realize he has always waited, because you are not here to slay in. You are here to reclaim in. The labyrinth was never meant to destroy the shadow. It was meant to contain it until the seeker was strong enough to face it. And now that you have, something begins to change. You do not leave the center victorious. You leave it humbled, changed, integrated. You walk now not to escape, but to return, carrying with you the parts once denied. You begin the journey outward, but everything is different. The path has not changed. You turn and begin to walk back along the curling path. But it is not the same walk. You are not the same traveler. There is a strange sensation now, not of moving through space, but of being moved, as if the path itself breathes beneath your feet, responding to each step with silent wisdom. The ancients understood this. The center of the labyrinth is not fixed in place. It is not a location. It is a condition of being. Once entered, it does not let go. You carry it, just as the initiate, once anointed in the hidden chamber of the mysteries, carries the spark of the divine back into the world, not visible to others, but glowing silently behind the eyes, in the voice, in the stillness. The center becomes a companion. In Hermetic tradition, this is the moment of rectificatio, the correction, the straightening of the inner path after the chaos of descent. The Latin phrase from the Emerald Tablet echoes, visita interior terrae, rectificando in vinis occultum, lapidem, visit the interior of the earth, and by rectifying, you will find the hidden stone. That stone, the lapis philosophorum, is not found in a mine. It is found in the heart. But here lies the paradox. Once you carry the center, the world no longer appears the same. Temples you once saw as stone become books written in geometry. Rituals become language. Myths become mirrors. The Sufi speaks of this as the Tariqa, the return journey through the same world, but now with the eye of the heart open. What once was seen as chaos now reveals its hidden order. What once seemed mundane now pulses with veiled presence. You may walk in a city street, yet feel the breath of the sacred around you. You may hear a child cry and remember the wailing of the initiate in the Eleusinian cave. You may look at the spiral in a sunflower and see the sacred proportions of the labyrinth echoed in nature, because now you understand the labyrinth is not a place, it is a pattern. It exists in the structures of galaxies, in the shape of hurricanes. In the helix of DNA it coils in the movement of kundalini, winds through the chakras, loops through the spirals of ancient petroglyphs in canyon walls. The ancients carved it not because they invented it, but because they recognized it. In medieval churches, the labyrinth was walked in place of pilgrimage, not out of laziness, but because the path inward is the longest pilgrimage of all. To walk upward now is to reintegrate. To return, not as you were, but as one who holds a center that cannot be taken, not by time, not by death. And yet, the spiral is not done. Because as you exit the labyrinth, the world is waiting. And the sacred path does not end at enlightenment. It begins at return. You step beyond the threshold. But the world has changed. The buildings, the trees, the sky, they remain as they were, yet nothing is the same. you begin to notice strange alignments, echoes, hidden repetitions. A spiral staircase calls to mind the ancient glyphs of stone-carved labyrinths. The dome of a cathedral pulses with geometries once thought dead. A street corner echoes a sacred crossroad from an African cosmogram. The illusion has lifted. You are now in the labyrinth, not walking it in stone, but breathing it, surrounded by it, embedded within its living walls. The ancient builders of sacred sites knew this truth. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica, the stone circles of Albion, none of these were simply temples or tombs. They were geometric invocations, mirrors of the inner labyrinth projected onto earth. They were maps, not to navigate land, but to navigate being. Even the great Gothic cathedrals, with their precise mathematical proportions and luminous rose windows, were labyrinths disguised as buildings. At Chartres, the spiral stone path was not a decoration. It was the invisible center of the entire structure, radiating harmonics like a song written in geometry. And those who walked it, monks, pilgrims, the silent seekers, were not tourists. They were initiates walking through cosmic metaphor. Why? Because to walk the labyrinth was to tune oneself to the hidden architecture of reality. And once attuned, one begins to see the world itself, even its chaos, as an initiatory chamber. This is why in esoteric teachings, the mundane world is never seen as mere illusion. The illusion lies in seeing it as meaningless. In truth, it is encoded richly, symbolically, mysteriously, like a living riddle whispered by the divine. The Hermetists knew this. They called the world a book written by God in symbols. The Gnostics called it a veil woven with paradox. The Sufis called it the friend in disguise. The Kabbalists mapped its emanations as a tree, each sephira a chamber in the labyrinth of the divine mind. The labyrinth never ended. It simply shifted dimensions. Now every encounter becomes a turn, every person met a test, every suffering a gate. And the way you respond determines whether you walk the same loop again or pass to the next chamber. This is the secret hidden in all initiatory myths. The journey never ends. Even return is a deeper descent. There is no straight road to divinity, only spirals, inward and upward, forever folding. The alchemists encoded it as the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, the eternal loop of transformation and return. To see the world this way is not madness, it is gnosis. It is to realize that everything around you, every wall, every face, every silence, is an invitation. And just as the center once waited for you in stillness, now it moves with you, guiding, testing, revealing. You have become the labyrinth. Close your eyes. You are no longer in the desert ruins of Egypt, nor beneath the rose vaults of a Gothic cathedral. You are not in the myth of Theseus, nor the rites of Eleusis, nor the spirals of ancient stones that hung with forgotten frequencies. You are within yourself, and here at last, the final turn reveals its secret. The labyrinth was never out there. It was always here, coiled in the recesses of consciousness, looping through memory, winding through thought, fear, longing, and revelation. This is the ultimate initiatory truth, hidden in plain sight across the ancient world. The Minotaur, a mask for your instinct; Ariadne's thread, your intuition; the temple, your body; the spiral path, your unfolding soul. In the deepest mystical traditions, Hermeticism, Gnosticism, Sufism, Vedanta, the ultimate journey is not an escape from the world, but a journey through the veils of illusion to the center of being. The labyrinth is the very architecture of your transformation. In Gnostic texts, the soul descends through layers of reality, forgets its source, and wanders until it begins to remember. The spiral is not a trap. It is the structure of return. Each step inward is also a lifting of a veil. And in Hermetic philosophy, the divine spark in humanity, the nous, is like a buried center of light obscured by the maze of material distractions, false desires, and inherited illusions. But it remains untouched, uncorrupted, eternal. The labyrinth leads to this light, not to find it, but to uncover it. Even the famed labyrinth of Daedalus, when understood esoterically, is not an architectural puzzle but a coded symbol for the mind itself, brilliant, cunning, intricate, yet capable of both creating and imprisoning. And here is the final paradox. You were never meant to solve the labyrinth. You were meant to become conscious within it, because the true center cannot be reached by walking. It is reached by awakening. The Sufi mystics tell a story. Seeker travels across mountains, deserts, and oceans in search of the divine. After decades, they arrive at a sacred door, only to find their own house on the other side. The path was not to go farther, but to go deeper. This is the final revelation. The labyrinth is not a structure to escape. It is the soul's sacred dance. Each turn, each trial, each silence, all of it necessary, all of it leading inward, not to the end, but to the place where beginning and end dissolve, the still point, the unmoving center, where the seeker and the sought become one. And in that center, there are no more questions, only presence, only awareness, only the soundless whisper of the ancients echoing through your bones. You are the thread, you are the center, you are the labyrinth, and the journey never ends. It only deepens.